Welcome to the Hard-Won Wisdom Podcast with best-selling author Fawn and corporate innovator Michelle Brigman. Come here weekly for career and life-changing conversations with some of today's most influential thought leaders, senior executives, and trailblazers who will share their mentoring wisdom. This podcast is brought to you by the Women's Leadership Network.
Hi, I'm Fawn Germer.
And I'm Michelle Brigman.
And this is the Hard-Won Wisdom Podcast. Today, we are dishing our secrets. This is the one subject that everybody says, Germer, you need to write a book on that. And I would write a book on these secrets, except I don't think I would get away with what I get away with if everybody knew. So you're going to hear how to stop getting ripped off, pushed around, and feeling totally dissed by customer service at big companies, and what happens when you get your insurance claims rejected, and when your cell service gives you a bill that makes no sense. Every single time something goes wrong, there is one way to get things fixed quickly. And I know what it is, and Michelle knows what it is. And we both know from two different sides. One, me, because I don't like getting ripped off. And as a consumer, I learned early on how to figure out the email for almost any CEO or senior executive. And as an investigative reporter, I'm unrelenting. Michelle, because she is one of the nation's expert on customer experience. And that's how we met. So, Michelle, I think you can give me a little credibility and yourself a little credibility if you tell the story of how we did meet.
Absolutely. So many years ago, I was working with Dell. And at that time, my job was I managed the team that handled executive escalations. So what that means, every big company has a group that is dedicated the premier customer support agents, and they are handling things like letters that go to the board of directors, letters that go to the CEO, letters that go to the Attorney General, Better Business Bureau, and they have a dedicated team that has additional authorization in order to make sure that they take extreme care of taking care of these customers and getting their issues resolved. So I was in charge of one of these particular teams. At that time, I get a phone call one day from one of our IT executives, panicked. He's at a conference and there's about 1,000 IT executives. And he says to me, oh my God, Michelle, there is a lady doing the keynote right now, and she is reading her letter to Michael Dell on stage, and she is not happy. We have got to get her help. He is panicked because here he is, right, in this conference of peers. We're getting bashed as a brand about her experience with the computer. And just let's all take a guess on who was that keynote speaker, but none other than my friend here, Fawn Germer.
And I have to qualify this story so that they don't think I just went up there to complain about my Dell computer. The topic of the conference was offshore support, which at the time was getting to be a very big part of customer service. And I couldn't get anyone who could understand me and could help me in a way that I understood.
Yeah. So I said, no problem. Get me the information. We'll get it handled. So I happened to turn it over to one of my team members, one of my folks who did an amazing job, honestly, just getting Fawn taken care of. And she can share that story in a minute. But one day I get a phone call and it's Fawn. Now, Fawn is calling me to say thank you for helping to get the issue resolved, which I'll just say this. What a phenomenal practice, because these folks are dealing with, difficult situations, and it's kind of a beat down on your team. There's always dealing with somebody who's upset. So when you get those few calls that say, you know what, you handled this really well, that goes a long way. So Fawn, I don't know if you want to share a little bit about what drove you to even make that phone call after the situation.
Well, I always say that you have to say thank you when it's done. And even before you have problems, you should make it a practice to send positive emails to the CEOs where you're happy, so that if something bad happens, you attach the negative thing to the good email. So they think, oh, this is not someone who just complains all the time. And I'll give you an example. I have a great relationship with the former CEO of Southwest Airlines because I'd always say, oh, this is great, this is great. And then the minute something went bad, I'm telling you, they would be all over it to make me happy. And that's happened with Apple Computer. I have this list, I put it in my phone today because of, I get a lot of stuff by doing this, a lot. And in that case with Dell, just to shut me up, they gave me a computer that was probably 3 times as powerful as what I had. And then this gold level of support where you only dealt with people in the United States. I could not have been happier. But over the years, I can't even tell you how many times I've done this. I do it at least every other week. I get stuff all the time. I write for so many different reasons, and I get action. Now, most of you at home get stuck on customer support, pushing numbers, wishing you could talk to a human being, maybe emailing the company through their system. But I somehow figured out a long time ago, you can go to the top. You just have to figure out how to get to that person. And we'll tell you about that a little later. But I'm just looking at this list, and this is in no means even 0.1% of the times that I've done this, but just in the last maybe year or so. Well, like when the lockdown happened, I needed a webcam really bad. And when you had everybody suddenly Zooming at the same time, you couldn't buy them. They were all out of stock. So I wrote this email to the CEO of Logitech, and I said, hang on, I got these for you all.
Of course you do.
Yeah, all right.
All the records.
Yeah, again,
I think it'll be.
I need this webcam. I said, I want a Brio or 4K. As you know, it's harder to get a webcam these days than it is to get toilet paper. So I figured I'd write you, you might have one around all the offices there, and I could be just your most loyal customer. So they sent me one for free. Not only did they send me one for free, they sent me 2. And these were $300 webcams just because I wrote. And while we're talking about cameras, once my 4-year-old Olympus camera broke when I was out on a kayaking trip to see whales. And so I didn't have good video from that trip. And I wrote them and I said, hey, this kind of blew. I did that. And they sent me a brand new camera. Now, I think this has to begin and end with Samsung because that's my favorite one. And it really does tell you most about what you need to do when you write your letters. Because you usually write in such frustration. You want to tell the person that they are the biggest a-hole on earth and that their company sucks. And you want to say all these bad things. But you have to remember when you write a letter that they are sick of people beating up on them. And you also have to remember you want something from them. So is somebody going to want to help you if you tell them they suck? Probably not. And I will only do that if I'm completely exasperated. And I've done that with insurance companies, but you never want to rage or vent on people. You want to find a way to win them over. You want them to help you. And so I had this Samsung fridge that I got in my house when I moved into it. And the only problem with it over all of these years is that the ice maker broke. And I called to get it repaired. And the guy says, yeah, this is one of the weird ones. You have to repair the whole thing and replace it for $450 before labor. $450 before labor. And because you can't do a partial repair. And I was like, do I buy a new fridge? Everything else is working on this. I couldn't figure it out. So I wrote to the CEO and I said, I should start by saying I'm such a good customer that my home has. And then I list a bunch of Samsung products, TV sets, computers, blah, blah, blah. The problems with my fridge, it's a really nice side-by-side fridge and I love it. But the ice maker has gone to hell. I realize that a 5-year-old fridge may not be something you care about backing up, but stay with me on this. It's going to cost me $450 to fix an ice maker so that I can have ice cubes. I was raised to take care of my things and not be wasteful. Well, I don't think I should trash an otherwise fine fridge, nor should I pay $450 to fix a machine that's 5 years old, especially if it is so I can have ice cubes, which I can make for free. But you get that nobody makes their own ice cubes with plastic trays anymore. It's just not how we spend our time. We're too busy on Facebook. So I'm in a position of either spending $450 or buying a new refrigerator just to get ice cubes, which I can manufacture for free if I didn't mind sacrificing the freezer space or filling up Rubbermaid trays every day and popping out the cubes like people did in the Ice Age. I'm asking you as a goodwill gesture to just send me the darn thing. I realize you probably don't care about my stupid refrigerator, but really, I've been a loyal customer and think Samsung should back its product. So immediately I hear, and usually you hear within 24 hours, immediately they call and they say, we are going to send you or give you the new piece, the new
Ice maker.
Yeah, the new ice maker. And we're going to have it installed for you. I was like, this is great. So score one for me. I was so proud of myself. Plus proud of that letter. And then it broke 2.5 years later. So by then it's a 7.5-year-old refrigerator. And I didn't think there was any chance, but I looked and I couldn't find the contact info of the person who'd helped me before. But I did see that they had a new CEO. And I thought, well, I'll just send the same letter back to this one. Just change it so it's a 7-year-old fridge. And the lady calls me and she remembered me and she goes, Fawn, you're getting one more. That's it. Fortunately, it has not broken again. But that tells you. And now, Michelle, from your background, which you know what happens behind the scenes, what happens when they get an email like that?
Well, so a couple of things. Number one, I think, right, this is what they deal with all day, right? These folks are receiving similar notes every day, but the difference is, and I just want to reiterate the point you made, they're typically just berating the individual who, what you learned is these folks, they're in this job because they're the best of the best. And they genuinely want you as the consumer to win. They want you to walk away happy. So treating them as an ally will go a long way. Also, the fact that you stick to the facts and it's a little bit entertaining, it's a joy, and they want to fight harder for you to figure out how to get the issue resolved and keep you coming back, because they're trusting the fact, right, that you also are going to tell that story. And I mean, you're a prime example. You get on stage and you talk about this. You talk about this in your books and your conversation. Here we are in the podcast, the people that do it right. And I think that, a couple of things that the folks on the phone have access to, right? As I mentioned before, they have access to greater discretion in terms of what it takes to resolve the issue. They have access to the leadership whenever they actually need to go resolve something outside of the typical rules or the process, right? They have credibility. They're trusted. Their department can say, here's something that frankly, we're sort of operating within the rules, but the rules aren't really working for this anymore. And we need to make an exception. So they have access to be able to get approvals for that. Also, they love sharing the good stuff too. It makes them feel good whenever they see something resolved, and it doesn't feel good when they're getting kind of kicked in the pants a lot. So those of you who, when you call customer service and you start screaming at the person on the other end of the phone, you've picked the wrong person to vent to. You're spending a lot of energy yourself to someone who frankly does not have the authority to help resolve your issue. So getting a path to have them help you find the person in charge that has the ability to make the decision is critically important. Most of the time, those folks are able to help you resolve the issue. But if for whatever reason you aren't getting anywhere, be nice. ask to escalate up. You don't have to be ugly to them when you do it. Ask to escalate up. There are processes for that.
I find that writing is better than dealing with the phone. Do you?
Yeah, I tend to lean on non-phone personally. A lot of it's because I don't care. It can be the best brand and the best circumstance. It's just a time sucker, and I don't have time to deal with that. So I would much rather tackle the letter, email, those sorts of things. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's a good thing when the time sucker is that they don't want to hear every single detail
No,
of your story. So,
no.
I mean, I was having fun with that Samsung one, which was why it was so long. Here's one that's shorter, sweeter, to the point, quick action to the CEO of Hamilton Beach. I start saying, I count on you for my smoothies, coffee, slow cooked foods, and all my food processing needs. Now, granted, you have to build these people up. I don't drink coffee, but let them think so, right? Anyhow, I say that I had recently purchased a Hamilton Beach Big Mouth food processor, and sadly, it's the first time you've let me down. And I described the excellent food processor I used to have and how it died. And I say, here's the problem. I literally have to fight with the thing now to close it so that the food processor turns on. It's the worst. So I'm now in the position of buying a new food processor just 3.5 months later. Anyhow, I just wanted to let you know the food processor's been a real dud for me. This is one of the times I don't ask for anything because I knew it was going to be very easy for them to grant that wish. And they did. They overnighted me a new food processor. You get things by being kind and being short and sweet. And if you can do it in one paragraph, bravo. If it's a really long, complicated story, you have to spend some time looking for the most salient points and have really no more than 4 bullets to say, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. Some companies are really great for customer service. Verizon is famous for good customer service. And guess what? I have found that in the last couple of years, that one's gone to hell. And so I left Verizon, I wrote them, and I kept having problems. I just had terrible phone service and couldn't get anybody on support that could help me. And they get me someone from the executive office finally, and it was a mess. So I went to T-Mobile because over Black Friday, they had a deal where you could get a phone for free. I could get a new iPhone for free, but it turns out it's kind of got a catch to it, which is you have to pay, they're going to pay it back to you every month but you have to pay it as you go, and then you get it after you've been there for 3 years. And I was very explicit when I went to the T-Mobile store that I did not want to pay any more than X amount on my monthly bill, and the other stuff was not explained properly. So I wrote customer service, and because my bill kept changing every month and it was getting weird, and they had really good people who wanted to make me happy, but every time I looked at the bill, it was a different amount. So I write to the CEO, who I'd already written twice to say that he had good customer service people. So there's a pattern here, people. Say when they're doing it right, because when you need something, you're going to get it. So then I'm like, look, they are really nice people, and I don't want anything to happen to them, but this blows. And they got me a customer support person who said, that's the way it is. I can't help you. And then I said, then we need to escalate, because even within executive relationships, you can escalate higher. There's always somebody's boss. So the boss person calls me and she goes, we have that in because we want people to stay for 3 years. And I think the problem you have is you probably stay for 3 years if our service is good. And we should just have you here because we want to make you happy and give you good service. So we're taking off the 3-year component. You owe nothing on that phone. Because I asked, because I pushed for it. And I've got this one for Verizon when I initially went there, and I had some good years with Verizon, but they got me to give away my iPhone 6S. And they said if I paid $350, I would get a new iPhone. Okay. And but I had to sign a 2-year contract. And I was good with that. But here comes the catch. So when I got that iPhone for $350, the guy never told me I was going to have to pay $25 a month in addition
Ouch.
to that $350. So I wrote Verizon. I said, was never told that. And I said, imagine my shock when I saw this on my bill. Then I said that, talked to the manager of the store, and he said I could bring the phone back and pay for a device to get out of the contract, or he'd charge $32 a month for me to keep this phone. There's no option to get my old phone back and go to a plan with no additional charges. I am asking for you to personally intervene. I'm a good Verizon customer and would never have signed up for this payment plan. It's outrageous. Should not have to go back and do anything because his employee didn't know what he was doing. Can you help me? Well, within an hour, I get a call and they said, you're right. We're giving you that phone. So I paid my $350 in the beginning, but how many people can buy a new iPhone for $350? It was a right or wrong thing. I've got this Virgo thing is if I feel that something isn't right, I'm going to push it. So I got that. Always send good emails because they come to help you later on. And Michelle, I mean, you know this, like when do you find that the CEO actually does read this? Because I've gotten emails from CEOs, from the CEO of Home Depot.
It'll depend on the company and it'll depend on the CEO specifically, because generally speaking, they're not going through and weeding through the emails that they're getting from customers. They've got a trusted staff that they turn those over to. However, there will be CEOs that, something interesting pops up, or even the team. Like I used to have great letters or great success stories. We might highlight them in an executive staff meeting. Like, here's a story of a customer turnaround. Here's one that maybe didn't go so well. So we can challenge maybe a business process and look at using that as an example of the right thing would have been to do something that we didn't have the capability to do. So let's go really challenge that process. So they do have visibility to it. It's not often though that you'll have the actual executive responding, but it does happen. I know Michael Dell, and I think he still does this to this day. He's somebody that, he's pretty active on paying attention to what customers are saying, whether it's through social media or whether it's through the letters and things that are coming in from customers. So it varies.
I have sent a lot of emails to Tim Cook from Apple. I bought a new Apple computer a few years ago and it had a problem. So they sent me another one and it had a problem. And it's hard to imagine Apple. I love my Macs, right? But I went through 4 Macs trying to get one that was going to actually work. But I wrote Cook's office and they hooked me up with some people and they made it their business to make me happy. They made sure I was going to get what I want. And I've learned that by writing Cook's office, I get what I need. For example, my Apple Care ran out once and then I had a problem with my phone. They weren't going to honor any warranty, nor were they obligated to, but they gave me a new phone. Same thing happened with an iPad. I was out of warranty by 6 months. I said, hey, can you make an exception? They made an exception. But with those 4 machines that I had trouble with, I dealt with these people for so long and they were rooting for me and they were so apologetic that I added them on Facebook. I sent emails to see how they're doing because I have contacts in the executive office there that I can use. And they've done some favors for me on other things, but it's that they come back and they see me as a human being that's nice to them. And in one case, the one woman had done so much to help me that I wrote Tim Cook an email to say how great she was. And 2 weeks later, she called me and she says, Fawn, Tim Cook read that email. I heard from him.
Those are the emails that you want to go back to. Where does the CEO typically engage? It's in those. When you can compliment someone who's done a great job, let me tell you, they love recognizing people.
Yeah.
And I want to say something else. I want to highlight something else that you shared, Fawn, that I think is really important. You taught me a long time ago through this process, even, again, this is how we met here nearly 20 years later. Look at us. But you always say, if you don't ask, you're going to get the no. So you have to ask, number one. And number two, if for whatever reason you don't get what you ask for, I think it's important to call out, you do not lose your mind and again begin berating everyone. I mean, this is something that I think is worth talking about because you don't always get the yes. Most of the time you do, though. And I think it's just an important point to call out.
So the other day, Michelle gave me the ultimate compliment because she said, I'm going to need your advice. And I was like, is she going to want advice with her kids again? Or what can I do? But no, when Michelle, an expert on customer service, asks me for my advice, it means I actually know what I'm doing. So I felt
Nice.
so smart that day. But let's share the story. And I will treat this as if you are a caller to our podcast.
Okay. So again, I have exhausted my knowledge and wisdom of navigating customer service departments on the back end. But my short and sweet story is I'm having an issue right now with Hertz. So last August for my birthday, my best friend and I, we are going to go to Santa Fe for a few days to celebrate. And I fly out on the 1st and I was going to return my car on the 5th. Well, due to unforeseen circumstances, on the 2nd, I have to leave. So I go back to return my car. Now, because of COVID, everything's short staffed. So the rules at the Hertz location was just leave your car and don't go to the counter. They did not want you at the counter. In fact, if you even walked into the counter, the person would say, please just leave your car. I can't help. So I left the car. Again, I've had it for 28 hours instead of 5 days. And I get on the plane to fly back to Dallas. And as I am sorting through all my stuff, I realize I have the key. I forgot to turn in the key. So I land, I call my travel agent, who's a wonderful friend. And I said, okay, what's the easiest thing for me to do? And she says, go to the Hertz counter at the Dallas airport and ask them if they can get the key back to the Albuquerque Hertz counter, which I did. I spoke to the gentleman. He was great. He took a picture of my receipt. He took a picture, or he had the key, and he's like, I'll get it handled. So all is well and good until August the 5th, when I get a phone call from the Albuquerque manager saying, hey, did you have the key? And I said, yes. Told her what I did. And she's like, all right, well, we probably won't get it back. So I may have to charge you $300. I said, you know what? I understand. I get it. That was on me. So lo and behold, I'll say months of interaction, I get hit with a $2,000 bill from Hertz. Plus it was over $2,000, saying that I did not turn this car in until the 16th. Now, just to go back on the date, I picked it up on the 1st. I returned it on the 2nd. And then I'm told that they have no record of me returning the car until the 16th, and they're charging me for it. So I have been going back and forth with customer service. I was told everything was credited back. They, validated my story until this week. I get a call, and we're recording this podcast. It's February of 22. I get a phone call from a collections agency wanting the full $2,000. Now I've paid for part of this already, because obviously I'm going to pay for my rental, what I had, and then the lost key I'm fine with. So anyway, I've now got collections coming after me on this car that I haven't had. So I'm like, okay, I have escalated internally. I've written my letters. I have every single interaction documented. I've talked to the Albuquerque airport, and now I have collections. So I'm like, okay, Fawn, what would you do?
Well, the first thing I would do is I wouldn't have gone through that many good faith efforts. I would have gotten to it a lot quicker. I'll give them a go around, but the minute it becomes inconvenient is when I start making noise. Mm-hmm. And when you write people on this, I just need a human being to come in here and help me. And then, so with Michelle's case, it's different. You want to establish your credibility. And in her case, she needs to say, as someone who has made a career on dealing with situations like this and is a national expert on customer support, it is ironic that I'm writing to you to ask for help. But I need a human being because, believe it or not, y'all have stuck me into collections for a car I did not have. And I need someone who can get in there and fix this immediately because I've never owed a dime. I pay my bills. And here's what happened. Boom, bullet number one. Took a trip to Albuquerque, had to immediately fly back, did so, dropped off the car as instructed. 2, realized I had the key, immediately took it on my landing in Dallas to Hertz, was told there was no problem, confirmed this with Albuquerque. Here's the name of the person who took the information. 3, thought everything was fine until I got a bill for $2,000. I had already agreed to pay $300 for the lost key, but $2,000 saying I still had the car until the 16th. 4, I have not been to Albuquerque since the 2nd of the month. So somebody else either had that car or y'all lost it, but this was not my error. It was definitely yours. I have not been there. Check my flight records. We're good. Okay. So at that point, I would list how many things you have done to try to rectify it and say, this is a problem in your customer service system that you should be aware of. So I've done this, 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 and this. Because of the inconvenience, I'm asking you that first, that you take care of the $2,000 collections issue. And second, refund that $300 for the key that I had forgotten. Because you should not have had to pay for that at this point. You should get everything. So that's your goal. Mm-hmm. And say, also, you should tell them how often you use Hertz, which is that your go-to car rental?
Yeah, well, it has been. I've traveled, as you know, several times since then. And I intentionally will choose someone else now because of the hassle with the.
But how many years have you been a loyal Hertz person?
Many years.
Well, you need to say that. They need to know that you're invested in the company. Now, where a lot of people trip up is that they get on social media and start saying bad things.
Yeah, I intentionally don't do that ever. Mm-hmm.
But it's like it's only natural. You want to tell everybody, this is a terrible thing. You have to use social media very wisely because it irritates them. And at that point, you just become a member of that big group of jerks that they don't like. I have threatened social media once very effectively because I took it was a local gym that I had canceled my membership. Everything was fine. And then 3 months later, they started hitting my bank account again and wouldn't refund it. And the owner would not call me back. They have 2 gyms with this name. There's not like 800 franchises. There's 2. Like, tell the dude to call me. Finally, I call him, oh, he's training somebody, or they will not call me. So finally I said, I want you to tell him that he has 1 hour to call me. And if I don't hear from him, I will be posting this on Facebook, Nextdoor, and Twitter. Now, the thing that is threatening to them is if it's a local company that's completely different than posting something nationally, because nationally you're one of thousands of consumers, right? But if I post that in Dunedin, Florida, where that's one of the big gyms, and I have thousands of local friends here who are going to see that and know that I'm a credible person, they're going to react. Well, when I put it on Nextdoor, I think that's what made the guy crazy. He called me immediately when those posts went up because he started getting some calls and begged me to take it down. And I said, I want to see that money back in my account.
Yeah.
Begged me to take it down. So I did. I don't need to kill his business, but he needed to learn that's not how you treat a customer. So I say, be really careful about threatening social media or threatening anything.
Right.
Because you have to remember your end result is what you're after. The end result is you want the problem fixed. You want your insurance company to approve that claim. And I met a woman who worked in appeals at an insurance company, and that was really interesting. She says sometimes they just, for sport of it, will reject a claim the first time to see if you will appeal.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, appeal. I always, boy, my insurance companies know me. If they don't take care of something, sometimes you lose. But
More often than not, you get what you ask or some version of it.
yeah,
I think you raised a really good point though, Fawn, talking about the local pieces. So things like Yelp reviews, things like the Nextdoor app or Google My Business or Google My Pages, when you're looking at a specific location and you offer feedback there, because think about us as consumers, we always are, we want to try that new restaurant. What's the first thing we do? We read the reviews on the restaurant, right? So those are great places. If you do go there, keep it local. When you blast something on Twitter, it's typically, you're just looking to cause a big storm of activity, but it doesn't actually generate anything to help you as the consumer, to help the business drive change. It just is a lot of noise that and then typically the person that's out there on Twitter, as an example, the company doesn't even have your actual contact information. So all you're doing is making waves with no actual productive outcome. So I think I just wanted to reiterate that, but try the other methods first. Absolutely. Because they really do want to help you out.
And so now I have to tell people how to find the people. So the first thing you do is you look up the name of the CEO, or if it's an operations, maybe the chief operating officer. It depends. Normally I go right to the CEO. And I know I've got a very good track record because, like I say, sometimes I hear from them. I've heard from the CEO of Home Depot, of Charles Schwab, of Southwest Airlines, and La Quinta Inns, because I had to stay in a La Quinta when my flight got bumped, and they did a really great job. So I liked him. But anyhow, so you can get to them, but you want to look up the name of the CEO. And then you Google email for, and then put that person's name. And if you see an option for Rocket Reach is the best of all of them, because it's this website that collects email addresses from professionals. So they may have 500 people at Dell Computer, but among them will be Michael Dell, and it'll tell you best address, and sometimes they're wrong. There are a couple of other places that offer emails. Sometimes people post the emails, but the other thing you can do is figure out the email. So you want to figure out what is the format that a company uses. So is it first initial last name at Dell.com, or is it first name dot last name at Dell.com, or first name underscore last name at Dell.com, or just first name at Dell.com, or just last name, right? So, but normally it's going to be either first name dot last name, first name underscore last name, or sometimes first initial last name at. And then you have to see the format that the company uses on their website. And when you don't know for sure what it is, I just send it to all three, and I'll get 2 bounce backs, so mail Damon didn't work, and 1 will hit. And it's rare that I can't find somebody.
It makes me cringe when you talk about all of this, because I'm going to say, my default, knowing the process, is try the support channel first. Always try the normal channels first.
Oh, why? When it's so much fun to get quick action that you deserve.
I don't know. I think that just goes back to, I think it's one of the great things about us, right? We handle things differently. It's just, I'm like, I want to honor the process. I want to make sure the people get, I went through normal channels, and if it doesn't work, then I escalate. But, and normally I get exactly what I need. Frankly, I probably work a little bit harder at it than you, until a situation like this Hertz issue, which, believe me, I have exhausted. I even got I want to escalate up, and they said there is no manager that you can escalate to. And I'm like, I work in contact center.
Oh,
I know
and then
that
you
there's
say,
manager.
okay, thank you.
Oh my God.
Thank you. I
She's
can help
crazy.
you with that. Okay. And when they don't want to give you their supervisor, you
Mhm.
say, what is your name? And then they start getting nervous. And then you say, what is your badge number? We don't give badge number. I say, well, what is your identifier? Well, blah, blah, blah. I said, okay, no. And then sometimes I'll say, no, this call initiated at, and then I'll look at my phone and I read. So they know I'm going to report them, right? And then I'll say, so you are telling me that you're going to do, you will not help me X, Y, and Z, and you will not give me your name or your supervisor. Is that correct? And sometimes they're really bold because they're sick of me and they're like, yes. And I said, okay, I'm going to repeat this and make sure I got this right. So I say it all over again. And you're not going to help me, right? Right. By the third time, I get to somebody.
Well, and what's happening on the back end is many of these companies have technology in place that do recordings of the calls, right?
Yeah.
They've got call recordings. And so a few things happen just to share a little bit of the tech side of it. One, the system, depending on what they have, can notice stress in your voice. So it can pick up those types of things.
Oh.
It can also notice, it may look for certain keywords that are being said on the call that will then trigger a notification. Well, like if I need to escalate, like escalation, or I'm really angry, or just different words that would indicate that this is an escalated call. And depending on, again, the technology they have, it can send a flag or an alert to a manager to say this is kicking in, or the quality team that will go back and evaluate and even score how well did the agent do. They can even hear, they're going to look at those indicators that went off to say, wow, what happened during this portion of the call? Because back in the old days, they had to listen to the entire call and they had to, score it against their definition of quality. Today, the technology can program in what they're listening for, tone, sentiment, keywords, and it will just block out and say, wow, 1 minute, 32 seconds to 1 minute, 42 seconds. Here is what happened during that call. This became very negative. And that manager can just go listen to that portion of the call and use it as a coaching opportunity. So there's a lot of really cool technology. It tracks for dead air. Like if there's a lot of silence in the call, that is typically a trigger. Like what's happening? Did that agent leave the customer just wondering what's going on?
So sometimes they hang up on you, which they do.
It's a pit.
Oh, like it's offshore and it's like suddenly your phone.
Well, so not always is that a hang up. A lot of times you have some challenges, right? Again, from technology that will drop calls. Typically that's a very small percentage of getting things dropped.
It's with me, I can guarantee
you might have a high rate of disconnects. I don't know, Fawn, but no, but typically that's relatively rare. It depends on where it is, where the calls are being taken. There's a lot of different factors, but it's not typically the agent hung up on you.
That's fascinating. Now, I do believe you cannot ever swear. Now, I've done it before. That doesn't mean I haven't done it and gotten really mad. But I think once you have a complaint and you report them and say, listen to the call, if you swear, then suddenly you are the problem and not the problem.
Right. And we've divorced, companies I've worked for, we've divorced customers. Like I've had to write the letter to the customer that just basically says, I just don't think this is a good fit. We're not going to do business because of someone who went off the rails consistently on trying to abuse or take advantage of the system. So I think, you talking about ways to get things, your needs met, asking for things and receiving them, that's great. If it becomes abused, right? Those people that really try to abuse or they're really negative and hateful to the support team, you can be divorced from the company. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I always wonder is if Amazon's ever going to divorce me, because I buy things and if I feel like it doesn't work as advertised, it goes back. And they've got that good return policy.
They have a great return policy.
But at what point do they say, yeah, we're going to divorce Germer there? But
think about how much you do buy that you don't return. So
that's very
They still make a whole lot more money off of what you're ordering from them versus going to the, local Walmart or CVS to pick it up. So don't know.
Well, I think this was a pretty good thing to talk about, and I love talking about it with you. So our hard-won wisdom for today is?
Well, first of all, before the hard one wisdom, I want to say, we're going to follow up using the Fawn method on my Hertz issue.
Oh, yes.
And then I'll have to come back and let everybody know what's going on, because we're in February and this has been going on since August. And I thought it was resolved before the end of the year. So it's a whole thing. So the drama shall continue. We'll bring an update.
Email us at info@hardwonwisdom.com if you've got any good stories. But I think our hard-won wisdom is you don't have to feel like a victim.
No.
You can always do something, speak up, go back, be persistent, be concise,
be kind, ask.
Yeah, and say thank you.
Mm-hmm. And celebrate the good stuff. That is probably the most powerful thing that you can do, is celebrate when companies are doing it right. And when you can acknowledge the individuals that deliver great service, oh my goodness, that is a gift that you can bring, and it will come back on you tenfold.
Oh, yeah, you have no idea how much that works. So in that spirit, everybody, good luck with all of your endeavors with customer service, and we will see you next week.
See you next time.
Thank you for joining the Hard-Won Wisdom Podcast with best-selling author Fawn Germer and corporate innovator Michelle Brigman. Join us weekly for career and life-changing conversations with some of today's most influential thought leaders, senior executives, and trailblazers who will share their mentoring wisdom. This podcast is brought to you by the Women's Leadership Network. Visit hardwonwisdom.com for more on this podcast and for links to Fawn and Michelle's web pages and social media. Also, be sure to rate, subscribe, and review wherever you listen to your podcasts. We really appreciate that effort, and we'll see you next week.